I think that Digg is very much it's a living and breathing thing that is impossible to kind of wrap your head around, and you never know what's going to happen on the site. I think that's one of the things that brings a lot of people back to the site. Like, I think that when you take a look at when I wake up in the morning, it's the same feeling in my gut that I had 3.5 years ago, and that's what the hell's on the front page. Like, I have no idea, and it's that freaky kind of you never know what you're gonna get, and it's always it tends to be interesting and kind of gems that you wouldn't find anywhere else. And I think that's what's unique and what keeps people coming back. Absolutely, to bring people together and get them talking outside of the online community is a big deal, and it's something that we would like to continue to do. It's important for the company. It's important to get users some face time with you so they can give you and share their ideas, their feedback. It's so much better than just an email coming in. Not only that, but I think it's important as we kind of evolve our site as well. One of the things that we'll be launching in the future is our story suggest feature, and we call it our recommendation engine. And it's a piece of software that analyzes all of the digs that are happening in real time across the site. And it compares you to other users. So you may be dig number 3,000 on the story, but who are those other 2,999 people? And what else are they finding that you might also find interesting? So when we start to do these things, we can surface stories very early on before they become popular that we can kind of in our own heads hopefully predict that they will become very popular stories. It's kind of this weird game, this kind of, we call it, behind the scenes we call them like prescient users, like users that can predict the future, the tastemakers in news. And it's really interesting because as we start to surface these stories, we also are finding like-minded individuals. And so in the future on Digg, not only will we say, okay, we realize you've been digging stories about oolong tea and the R8, so here's some awesome stories that you might find interesting, but here's 10 other users that you're constantly agreeing with that you had no idea you were agreeing with. And so we're going to start making those introductions. And once we do that, we want to have meetups and get-togethers and things where people can come out and say, like, hey, I really enjoyed that story that you submitted, and like make those connections, those real-world connections. So it's pretty cool and it's fun, and hopefully we'll have that feature out in a few months. What it comes down to is the quality of content and who's writing the articles. I think that if Digg has done anything, it's really leveled the playing field for traditional media. So a story can come from the New York Times or from somebody's blog that they wrote out of their basement and receive the same amount of traffic. Which is insane, which just wasn't possible a few years ago. To think that there could be a story on the front page of the New York Times that doesn't get as much traffic as someone's blog that makes the front page of Digg is crazy. But it's great because really what it's doing is it's saying it's really not about the one destination so much as it is about the quality of the article and the story that's being presented, right, and what people want to read. So for us, I've seen a lot of people in traditional media, writers, that have said, my blog is now popular enough to where I'm receiving enough ad revenue where I could consider doing this full time. I can leave my 9 to 5 and say, okay, this is my blog, this is who I am as a writer, and do that. And there's been several people. Malik, who wrote for Business 2.0, left and started his own network of blog sites that are doing quite well. And I think it just gives people more options in the future. But quality will always prevail, and I think that there's going to be a place and need for that, and there's going to be a need for people that do the deep dive when it comes to news. The fact checking, the people that there's still going to need to be teams around certain types of stories, and that's always going to survive. The deep dive is being defined slightly differently now than it was. When you think about the way that traditional newspapers would do that, they would have a team working on a story that would follow that story throughout its lifespan, right, and do the follow-ups and the fact-checking and all that. Now all of these users that are, editors on Digg, and by editors I mean registered users that submit stories, they're the ones that are doing the fact checking. I mean, without a doubt, we have stories every single day that are marked and flagged as inaccurate. There'll be a story that's submitted, hits the front page, and users, they have different bury options. And if they go and they do the research and they check the different sites and they say, okay, this doesn't add up, they'll submit it in the comments. They'll oftentimes submit a follow-up story, and they'll flag the article as inaccurate, and they'll say that right at the top of the article. So that happens all the time. It really comes down to, I mean, I don't think that's going away. I think it's slightly evolving when it comes to Digg, but traditional websites, I'm sure, will still have that because they need that for their own kind of set of stories and their own personal site, their own branded site. But for us, it's very much this living and breathing thing that happens on Digg, where a story will come up and then there will be a rebuttal to that story that comes up a few hours later, and it's constant news is just getting pushed down. So it's just the way that we do it. In discussions that we have with traditional media, when they come in and they say, okay, oftentimes we'll get phone calls and say, hey, can you meet with us? We just want to sit down and have a conversation about where things are headed. And we sit down and say, okay, obviously you guys have just exploded on the scene, and now you're the second or third highest referral of traffic to our site, and we just want to know, how can we work with you better? And I think that one of the things Digg will do in the future is kind of refine some of these tools for these publisher sites and say, okay, what type of information can we give them to really inform their writers and educate them about what the masses are wanting, and really shortening kind of the feedback loop. It's really about the message that they're getting from the readers in real time, as opposed to printing something and just hoping people are going to like it. And those are tools that we're working on, and stuff that we'll have out in the future. Can't really say a ton more about that, but it's cool stuff.